We're going to figure this out together." The words were kind, professional, practiced, but they were also the first words of real comfort Mary had heard in longer than she could remember. As the autumn evening settled around her quiet house, as her children lived their busy lives in distant cities, Mary Peterson began to tell her story to a stranger who cared enough to listen. She told Angela about Charles, about their love story that had started at a teacher's college dance in 1963, about the tough early years when they were both teaching, saving every penny to buy this house, about the joy of bringing each baby home, the years of PTA meetings and soccer games and band concerts, about Charles's illness, the way their children had seemed to pull away even then, making excuses about work and distance and their own family's needs. As she spoke, Mary felt something shifting inside her, a recognition that perhaps it was time to stop waiting for her children to remember she existed. Perhaps it was time to learn how to exist without them. The grandfather clock stood silent in the corner, its hands still marking that long-ago moment when promises had been made and broken. But as Mary talked and Angela listened, and the soup simmered on the stove, time began to move forward again in its own way. What Mary didn't know, couldn't know, was that this evening marked the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything she thought she knew about family, love, and survival. As she sat in her kitchen with a stranger who showed more care than her own children, events were already in motion that would force her family to confront the consequences of their abandonment and would test Mary's resilience in ways she never imagined. The soup began to bubble on the stove, and Angela rose to tend to it. Outside, the streetlights were coming on, casting long shadows across Mary's carefully tended garden. Somewhere in Boston, Seattle, and St. Paul, her children were living their lives, unaware that their mother was about to stop living in the shadow of their absence. Change was coming, ready or not. The fall came suddenly, like most life-changing moments do. Mary was reaching for her mother's china teapot on the top shelf, the one she'd been saving for when her daughters-in-law might visit, when her hip gave out. The shattering of the teapot against the kitchen floor was followed by a deeper silence, broken only by Mary's shallow breathing as she lay among the broken pieces. She wasn't sure how long she remained there before Mrs. Henderson heard her calls for help through the kitchen window. The next few hours passed in a blur of EMT voices, fluorescent hospital lights, and doctors' concerned faces. It wasn't until she was settled in a hospital room that reality began to crystallize.